the dud missiles that Israel sent. Like they find leftover missiles that came in very throw bombs that didn't explode, and they're making those into missiles because they're sort of running out of supplies. Or for special forces. Gewaltig. Okay, yesterday we learned about Amen, and we learned that it stands for Kael Melech Neman, and the Chida, not the Chida. The Ben Yoyada says very interesting. The three letters that spell the letter Amen are all Shem Havaya. Aleph, it's structured by a long vav and then two little yuds. So 10 plus 10 plus 6 is 26. That's Shem Havaya. Mem is Chavav. The letter Mem is structured like a Chavav. So that's 26. And Nun is like a Vav with a Yud at the front and a Yud at the back, or a Yud at the top and a Yud at the bottom. That's how an end of Nun is made. So each one of the three letters are Shem Havaya. That's what the Ben Yehuda says. Zok the Heilige Gemara weiter. Lachein Hirchiva She'oil Nafsha. The She'oil opened up its mouth. Upara Apia opened its mouth of Lichoik for those people who don't listen to the halachos. Amar Reish Lakish. If someone didn't do even one mitzvah, in other words, if someone avoided, he did all the mitzvahs of the Torah, but even one mitzvah he didn't do, even such a person is going to go to She'oil. That's pretty harsh. Rabbi Yochanan said, Lo nicha lumarayu damet lahu. It's not nice for you to say that. It's a little bit harsh. Elo, this is how you should understand the pasuk. Even if you were over every aver, but there's one aver that you kept, or one mitzvah you kept, that would be enough. That would be enough to protect someone from Gehenna. So now we're going to bring several different psukim where Reish Lakish is going to darshan them in a relatively harsh fashion, and Rabbi Yochanan is going to suggest a softer fashion. Pi shnayim ba yicharesu. Let me read the pasuk inside so that I don't butcher it. Vaya b'chol haaretz num Hashem pi shnayim ba yichresu. Yigvo. So 2/3 will die. V'ashlishish yivaser ba, and only 1/3 will remain alive. So what does this mean? It's shalishi shel shem. It's a third of shem, and Rashi explains in a relatively lengthy explanation that it's a third of number 3 child. So let's just do a quick cheshbon in Rashi. We won't go through the whole Rashi. Shebeis chalakim shel kol ha'olam yunachrasin. 2/3 of the world will be destroyed. V'chela gimel yivaser ba, and only 1/3 will be salvaged. Ve'ezeh chelek shlishi. Which third chelek? Kol shlishiyoi sheyesh l'shalish anu l'shalshim. We go after every third. It's actually 2 things we're going to see: every third or every third child. So either a third is a fraction or a third of a third child. Sheminoyach nifredu kol ha'olam. The world started from Noach. The gimel banim hayuloi. So we take a third of Noach, and that will be Shem. Haray shlish banim Shem. So we start with Shem. Ushlishi shal Shem, and a third of Shem who are Pachshat. So here shlishi doesn't mean a third; it means the third child of Arpachshad. What of Shem? The third child of Shem was Arpachshad. It makes sense to say that La'asad Lavoi, the branch of genealogy that's going to be salvaged, is going to be that contains the Jewish people. And ushlishi shel Arpachshad, and if you take a third of the descendants of Arpachshad, shu shlishi shel Shem, who he is a third of Shem, or he's a third child of Shem. Shehu shlishi shel Noach, who's a third of the children of Noach, yivaser, only 1/3 of those will remain, but chol ha'olam yikares. The rest of the world will be destroyed. So well, that's relatively harsh.
That won't help us.
Why?
It'll still leave Yishmael and Edom around.
That's right. That's right. But it means that Klal Yisrael is going to be very minimized. Yotzu Yisrael, Kedichsiv b'Parshas Noach, Arfachshad Hoyled as Shelach, v'Shelach Hoyled as Ever, the Ever Hoyled as Peleg ad Avram, Uchashat Machalach l'Gimel Chalakim Zar Shalom Parshad, Kohen b'nei Yisrael v'Yishmael, exactly like David's saying, it includes b'nei Yishmael, Kohen b'nei Yisrael v'Yishmael, Shein b'nei Avram uv'nei Loit uv'nei Haran, v'chein Shar Umois Shiyatim l'Gimel Chalakim. So we're not going to salvage Yishmael. Even the Zerah of Avram is going to be split into three, and 2/3 are not going to survive. But the way I would have thought, without not that I'm a man to even think without Rashi, but the way I would have thought, it's very harsh because most of the world is getting destroyed, and just 1/3 of maybe Avram Avinu is going to survive, right? So it means everyone's going to everyone's going to die. But that's not how Rashi learns. Rashi learns that the reason why Yishlokish is harsh is for a different reason. Kashem Yisrael Yima Reuben, Ukraivin Liz Connected Kulam. Once you're so granular down to the Jewish people and the people around them, well, what happens if the Jewish people make up more than 1/3? That means part of the Klal Yisrael is going to be culled. V'lo yagiu kol zera pachshad liyos pishnayim elam ken Yisrael mashlim in Reuben oichetcha v'nimtu Yisrael masmaitim b'sach pishnayim. If you're going to get so granular, you don't know exactly what the population will be at that time. And if there's a lot of Jews relative to the rest of the world, what's going to happen is, it has been a problem. So Toby says, don't worry about it.
That's been a problem. Now we're not even 1%.
That's right. So, but that's how Shlokish learns, which is a very harsh way. On that, Rabbi Yochanan said, Amar le Rabbi Yochanan, lanicha l'marayu, ta'amrit l'hachi. We're killing everybody. It just means that all of the descendants of Shem will survive, and the 2/3 of Cham and Yafes, they won't survive. So that's a lot more generous as far as the world. Another pasuk. Ki anochi ba'alti eschem. Another pasuk how there'll be 2 approaches to them. It says Ki anochi ba'alti eschem. I'm trying to find the pasuk. Here it is. Shuvu banim shevavim. No Hashem. Ki anochi ba'alti eschem. I own you. Meloshen bailim. L'kachti eschem. And I'm going to gather you up. Echad me'ir, 1 out of a nation. Ushnayim mimishbachim, 1 out of a city and 2 out of a family. Vevesi eschem sion. So it sounds like Hashem is really going to be picking a small fraction of the population to redeem. That's what exactly what it means. Pashut pshat. That means 1 person of every mishpacha is going to survive. That's a very harsh way to explain these psukim. Is it means Hashem is going to look at, even if there's 1 good person in the whole city, because of that, he'll save the whole city. Kol hamishpacha kula. Yosy Rav Kahana kamei the Rav v'Yosy v'Ka'amar Devarim Kiksov. Rav Kahana said in front of the Rav, like Rish Lakish of Devarim Kiksov. What's that? Amalei Rav. Rav told him, it's also very, very harsh. Ela echad ma'ir mezaka kol ha'ir u'shnai mimishpacha mezakin kol hamishpacha. Chazya da v'kachayev reishei v'solach v'Yosef kamei the Rav. On a different note, a different story, Rav once noticed that Rav Kahana would first shampoo his hair and take care of his goof, of his physical comforts, and then after, when he was ready, then he would come to shear. Amalei, so he told him something that sounded very harsh. Which almost sounds like you're not going to survive. It's a bad curse. So a person won't know its value. And he won't be found in amongst the living. So Rav Kahana was like very taken aback that Rav would speak to him that way. Are you cursing me? So Rav said, no, I'm not cursing you, I'm just showing you a person. Kura kamina. Torah will not be found by somebody who first is focusing and gives precedence to his physical comforts before Torah, by such a person, there's not going to be Torah. Let's have a quick look at Rashi. So then he said, no, I meant to impart to you the message that you shouldn't put your physical comforts before learning. Nemar, it says, this is Mamish, the Lublin strikes again. We're talking about the Lashonis of Geula, which is Nagay to Pesach. I'll take you to a nation, as a nation to me. And it says, I will eventually bring you into Eretz Yisrael. Makish Yitziyasan Mitzrayim. It's comparing Yitziyas Mitzrayim, Livi Asan La'aretz, to coming into Eretz Yisrael. Ma B'Yasan La'aretz. Shnayim Misamach Riboy. For every 600,000 people, only 2 people got out. So that's 1 to 300,000. Af Yitziyasan Mitzrayim, so too. Only 2 out of 600,000 got out of Mitzrayim. So where do you see that only 2 out of 600,000 got into Eretz Yisrael? Because 600,000 Yidden, it was nigzar that they should die in the Midbar. They were Meshach Midbar. And only Yeshua and Kalev got in. And Rashi says we're only focusing on the 20 to 60 range, which is the adult male. So just like such a small ratio of those people that were in the Midbar made it into Eretz Yisrael, that same ratio is the ratio of how many people got out of Mitzrayim. So they make a cheshbon. If you use your calculator, you're going to figure out if it's 2 to 300,000. That means the 600,000 people that came out of Mitzrayim were also 2 to 300,000. So if you multiply 600,000 by 300,000, you get 1.8 billion. So they asked, is it possible that there were 1.8 billion people in Mitzrayim? So could be we're dealing with a little bit of a.
Also, the Shevet Levi survived, didn't they?
Yeah, but it's still 1.8 billion is still a lot.
No, yeah, I'm not talking about that. 2 out of 600,000.
Would have been out of the ratio of 2 to 600,000.
Yeah.
Yeshua, Kalev, and Shevet Levi. Are you sure Shevet Levi didn't die in the Midbar?
Not 100%, but I think so. They weren't involved in either the Cheta Egel or the Meraglim.
Levi was not involved in the Meraglim?
Don't think so.
So maybe they got in. It's brought down that Shevet Levi got in.
Well,
maybe.
Okay.
I seem to remember that. Maybe I'm wrong.
Whatever, it was a very small fraction of the people that were in Mitzrayim ended up getting in Eretz Yisrael. What's that?
No, he said only a very, very small fraction got out.
Correct. But if you take all the people that were in Mitzrayim and you compare them to how many people got into Yisrael, it's a small fraction of a small fraction. 2 out of 600,000. So it's one. So one 300,000ths left in Mitzrayim. There were many more people in Mitzrayim than those that actually got out. And Rashi says they died during Makas Choshev. Now you were suggesting that 3/4 but if, from this Gemara holds that many more died. We can see Rashi. Rashi on the second column. Mitzrayim. Shemikol Samach Riboy Shoy b'Mitzrayim Lo Nishtar Mem El Shnayim Bilbad. V'Oistam Shnayim Shal Samach Riboy Olu L'Samach Revuos. I mean that was a lot. If you add it up, it would be a huge amount. V'Ashar Meisu Kulam b'Shloshish Me'Afela Shlo Yir Mitzrayim Royim b'Mapalosh Shal Yisrael. So we always know, we were always taught it's 4/5 died, but here it's a lot more than 4/5. So I guess there's a how many died.
Even 4/5 would be a massive amount. Would have been the worst Holocaust of Jews ever.
And it's funny, how would Mitzrayim not have noticed? Even if they didn't see them
Right.
die, there would be so many dead bodies around.
And
I'm not sure how that works.
And we don't commemorate them at all. I mean, no
I don't
plaques or nothing. It's like nobody's mocker them.
Well, it happened all in one day. Modi says we would have taken every day, and all 365 days in the calendar are already booked. Okay. If I ever opened up a bakery, I would have to look up all these dates and try to get sponsors to get the rope to speak on each day why it's good to sponsor a ticket for that day. Google would love that. Because Zok to Gemara Viter. Zok to Gemara Viter. Amarava v'chein li Yemosha Mashiach. But Yemosha Mashiach, it's going to be just as restrictive. There's going to be a very small, elite, exclusive group that's going to be going with Mashiach. Shenemar, isn't that reassuring? Shenemar v'onso shama Himeni ureha. It'll be just like Himeni ureha uchayoim aloi samay eretz Mitzrayim, which means a very small fraction of those people are going to get out. Okay, the answer Shama Himeni ureha uchayoim aloi samay eretz Mitzrayim. Zokt Rashi animu shvelim yiyu. So the answer Shama means we will be poor at that time, poor in ruchnius. Kimei aloisam eretz Mitzrayim, like the days we left Mitzrayim. Tanya Amar Belazar Rabbi Yosy Pamachas nechnasti Alexandria shel Mitzrayim. I went to visit Egypt. Matzazi zakanechot. I found there an old Egyptian who remembered what went on there. V'amar li, ba, come with me. V'arecha ma'asu avoisai la'avoisecha. Let me show you what my parents did to your parents, what my father did to your fathers. Okay, Mehem Tavu Bayam, they drowned many of them, right? Mehem Har, they killed many people with the sword, and Mehem Moachu Bevinyan, and many of the people they shoved into the wall to act as bricks. And Rashi speaks out. Moachu Bevinyan. They use them as bricks, which we know that's what happened to Micha, who was taken out of the wall. And because of this, Moshe Rabbeinu got an oynish. What does that mean? Because the Moshe told HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Mayos Basi al Parai, Ladaber B'Shimcha, ever since I gave the message of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that you told me to give to Parai, hey Rala Amasa, you didn't make it worse, you made it better. So when Moshe said that, Amar Lai HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, the free dikadoidus. What? Oh, I'm sorry. I said he made it better? Okay. So you didn't make it better, you made it worse. So Hashem said, oi, the hand dikadoidus and the gefallen. He's saying this on Moshe. Oi, the hand dikadoidus. We lost our avos who were true Maiminim, unlike Moshe Rabbeinu, who's a lightweight. You know how many times I came and I revealed myself to the Avos, and they never second guessed me. They didn't say Ma Shimcha. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, Pari asked him, what's your name? What should I tell him? They didn't ask me, they trusted me. I told Avram, I promised Avram Eretz Yisrael. And then what happens? In the land that I promised to him, and he couldn't find. Hashem, you had a promise, you give me all of Eretz Yisrael, and they can't even find a measly little grave. He had to buy it with a huge expense. He never thought to himself, hey Hashem, this is not fair. I thought I have all of Eretz Yisrael. Now I have to buy it bit by bit. Now, the Rishonim ask, HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe l'zaracha etenenu. Hashem never promised it to Avram himself, so why is that a problem, B'chlal? So I don't know the answer, but that's the kasha that's asked. Amarti liYitzchak, gur b'oretz hazois. The answer that Afal Pikein, at least a grave he should have gotten. He should have a little. It shouldn't be so hard to find a grave if eventually HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to give him all. Amarti liYitzchak, gur b'oretz hazois. Vayim chavarecheka. I'm going to bench you in Eretz Yisrael. And what happened? Bikshu avad of mayim lishtois. His servants wanted to find a little bit of water to drink. V'loy matzu. They couldn't find asher asum riva. Everything was a fight. Shenemar vayirivu roye gror im roye Yitzchak. Leimar lanu amayim. So they couldn't even get water. They couldn't even get water in Eretz Yisrael. And Yitzchak had no problems. And then because he wanted to park somewhere, he had to pay rent to park his tent in the land that belongs to him. And
Gemara's quoting a Rashi.
what's that?
Gemara's quoting a Rashi.
Yes, yes. It's much harder when you have all of Klal Yisrael complaining. That's true. Okay, Amrli Mashimcha. But and you tell me Mashimcha. Betchila, first, before I even start, when I first promised, you first ask Mashimcha. But Achshav Ata Amrli, V'Hatzel Lo Yitzaltes Amcha. So Hashem said, Ato Sira Asher Esa Leparoi B'Melchama. I'm sure. Ata Tira Asher Esa Leparoi. B'Melchamas Paroi Ata Roya. Since you complain this way, yes, you will be zoicha to see me destroy Parai with Nisim and the Floys by Yitzchak Mitzrayim, but you're not going to be zoicha to take Klal Yisrael into Eretz Yisrael and fight the 31 kings that Yeshua had to fight to get in to Eretz Yisrael. Okay, let's have a look at Rashi. He was a complaining. Well, a higher of Nekadosh Baruch Hu. Amar Moshe of Nekadosh Baruch Hu Me'os Basi. Amar leChaval al da'avdin v'lo b'shtachin. Hefset gadol yesh al gedolim shavdu. It's a big loss that we don't have the Abbas anymore. V'eni yochalim tzoi chasidim achem kamoisam. I can't find anybody to replace them. Shein nato kavrom v'yitzchak v'Yaakov. Shaloi hirharu acharei midoisa. You're not as big as them. They never ever second guessed me. Kel shakai. Shamarti loy ani kel shakai pray urevei. That was Avram. Anikel Shakai Hamas Alech Tesalech Lefanav Tamim. That was, I think, that was also Avram. But Yisi Maftichai Hakadosh Baruch was Maftiach them Shekol Eretz Yisrael Loy Levanov. V'loy Amru Mashimcha. They didn't ask his name. Kamoisha Asisa Ata like you're doing. Betchila Amr Li Mashimech. First you asked me my name. V'achshav Herharta Al Midoisai V'Amarta Atel Lo Yitzalta Samecha. L'Ntoya Aloi Kamavita Aloi Apadnai. Okay, Atasira Hapam. Now you're going to see Tira and the Floish on the Yosabam. Here you're going to see it, but you're not going to see. You're not going to see what You're not going to see the Floish when I take them into Yisrael. I don't. I thought I saw it in Rashi, but it's not in Rashi. I saw brought down somewhere that what did this old Mitri say? I'm going to show you what my father did to your father. He told him, but he didn't show him anything. So I saw somewhere, I thought it was Rashi, but it's not a Rashi. The Masifta brings it down from somebody, that he showed him a brick wall that was built with bones and hair sticking out of it. He actually showed them the babies that were in the wall. Okay, Zok to Gemara weiter. Tanya, we learned. I'm sorry, I skipped. It says, Vaymar Moshe, Vayikir Atcha Vayishtachu. Moshe quickly bowed down. What do you mean he quickly bowed down? Ma Ra Moshe, Rabbi Chanina ben Gamla Omar Erech HaPayim. Out of the Shlosh Esher Midas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's the Erech HaPayim that he bowed down for. He needed the Erech HaPayim because he wanted Klal Yisrael to survive the Egel. Erech HaPayim Rav, but Amri Emes Ra, he saw Emes. So right away that, well, maybe he bowed down after all of those Shlosh Esher Midas. Why does it have to be after one? For the answer, then it wouldn't say Vayimar Moshe. Vayimar Moshe means he quickly hopped around right after that Midah. What Midah quickly triggered that he should bow down? Zokt Rashi, Emes Ra b'midosav shenikra Emes. And why was he afraid of Emes that he bowed down right away? V'nisyare im nischayivu kliya im udonos ebudin gomer. He didn't want Emes. Right? Tom Sandel once told me that he has a partner who was in big trouble legally, and he went to the Square Rebbe for a bracha. So the Square Rebbe tells him, Hanish kemoide, the Emes is the Roskimen. He said, Rebbe chas v'shalom, the Emes soll nicht der Roskimen. So that's the Emes that Moshe was afraid of. He bowed down Moshe, the Emes soll nicht der Roskimen. Umir v'spal, he quickly davened for Klal Yisrael, shalei edono yisam l'fi ma'aseyim, they shouldn't be judged according to their ma'asim. Zog to Gemara weiter. Tanya Kamadama Erech HaPayim Ra. We learned a brisa that supports the svara that Rav Gamla said, that Rav Chanina ben Gamla said, that it was by the midah of Erech HaPayim The Tanya Kishaola Moshe Lamorim Mater LaKadosh Baruch Hu Sheyoshe v'Kosev Erech Apayim. You saw Kadosh Baruch Hu writing Erech Apayim. Amar Lefanav Rebbeinu Shloim Erech Apayim L'Tzadikim. Of course, you don't mean to have Erech Apayim for Rishonim. You of course mean it only for Tzadikim. I don't want you to extend such courtesies to Rishonim. Amalei Hashem said no, it's everybody. Af l'Rishonim I have Erech Apayim. Amalei said Moshe said Rishonim Yevedu, let Rishonim go straight to hell. Amalei hash the chazis my demiboyla. Now you're going to see what you need, because Kishachotu Yisrael Amalei kach umartali Erech Apayim Tzadikim. When Klal Yisrael did the Aveira, do you still want to say Erech Apayim Tzadikim? And now it wouldn't include Klal Yisrael for doing the ego. So right away, Moshe had to give in Amar the fun of Rebbeinu Shalom v'lekach Amar Tali Afler Shayim. You told me Afler Shayim. Let's just see the Rashi at the bottom of Amar Aleph. Tanya Kamadam Erech Apayim Ra the Tanya Kashal Moshe Lamorim Amar Shayim Yevedu v'loyelach Erech Apayim Aleim. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu loykach Amarta Erech Apayim Tzadikim v'lo Shayim. Didn't you tell me back then that you only want Erech Apayim for the Tzadikim, not the Rishoyim? I would say Klal Yisrael will not be extending the courtesy now, because right now they're acting like Rishoyim. So Moshe said, but you said after Rishoyim. Now it's great what Hashem said, because now Moshe Rabbeinu realized that HaKadosh Baruch Hu knew what was best for Klal Yisrael. As Rashi says, "V'hashta k'mandamer Erech Apayim ra, shekivin shara midazu b'HaKadosh Baruch Hu she'Erech Apayim af l'Rishoyim sameach." He saw that it's a good thing that Erech Apayim extends to Rishoyim as well, and that's why he bowed down there. Reb Chaga v'solik v'ozol b'darga d'vei Rabba Bar Shila. He was going up the steps to the Besmedrash of Rabba Bar Shila. I guess the Besmedrash was upstairs. And as he's walking up the stairs, Shamay Layunuka. And the Rishonim tell us the reason why it mentions that he was on the stairs is to say that even when he was climbing up the stairs, he was focusing on climbing up the stairs, he was still able to listen and focus on what this little child was saying. What did the little child say? He said, your Eidus Rebbeinu Shalom is very believed. Leveischa, no, avakadosh to your holy dwelling. Hashem loyichyam. Now after that it says, v'samach le'tefila l'Moshe, and this seems to be a tefillah that Moshe was saying. Omar, he said, Shemamina, you see from here that Erech Apayim Ra. The tefillah l'Moshe was in reference to Arich Hashem, so it's another support that it was Erech Apayim that Moshe saw that made him bow down. Let's see Rashi. That's referring to the midah of Erech Apayim. Your edus that I saw in Chayrev are Neman. I saw Erech Apayim in Chayrev. Chayrev is referring to Har Sinai. Moshe Rabbeinu Hashalom Amri. This pasuk is quoting Moshe Rabbeinu. So this is part of Hashem's tefillah where he's saying that you're Neman when you said on Chayrev that I have Erech Apayim, because over here the Erech Apayim was actually manifested. It doesn't say Hashem is going to put a Torah. The Rebbeinu Shalom Kivay Yachal himself is going to be their crown. I'm not sure exactly how that works. Hashem tzivakos la teres tzvi. He will be like a kind of dormant, like a crown. Uletzviras tifera l'sharamli. So what are these nuschois that the pasuk is referring to? My la teres tzvi uletzviras tifera. Zok Gemara, it's referring to Oisayim Ritzainai. So la teres tzvi are to those who do his rotten, and uletzviras tifera are those who are looking umetzapim lishu osai, that are looking forward to the Geula. Yachalakol. You would think anybody who does these things, meaning he does mitzvahs, and he looks forward to the Geula, he's going to get that crown. Talmud Loimer, the final words in the pasuk is L'sher Amoy. And we say it's referring to Shiraim. Shiraim are like fabrics. Fabrics are not very chashuv. So, L'misha Mesim Atzma Kishiraim. Someone who considers himself like a fabric, like a window covering, something that's not noticeable, something that's not front row center, somebody who's an honor. The pasuk goes weiter and says, "Ulurach mishpat, uluyoshev al mishpat, ulugevura Meshivi Hamochama Shaira. Let me read the pasuk inside so that I don't butcher it. Uluruach Mishpat, Yosy Ala Mishpat, Ulugvura Meshivi Mochama Shaira. Okay, so how do we dash in this pasuk? Zok Gemara Uluruach Mishpat is that Haroy de Esitrei. Uluruach Mishpat, someone whose ruach controls, he puts down the Yitzhara. Yosy Ala Mishpat. A Yosy Ala Mishpat is Zed Adon din Emes Lamitasai. Ulugvura is Zeh Meskaber BeYitzrei. Meshivi Mochama, who's that? Zu Shenoisei v'Noisen b'Machamta Shal Yerangit and learning. Sha'ara is Elu Shemashkimim u'Ma'arivin v'Batach Nisiyos u'Vavate Midrashis. Let's see Rashi. If I can find it. Okay, here we are. L'rich Mishpat, Shoyvet Esrichai, Sheroide BeYitzrei, Sheboyet BeYitzrei, V'choyzer b'tshuva min haver shavar. So he rejects the Yitzhara, even if he did an Avera, he does tshuva. And Miskaber BeYitzrei is Margis Yitzhara al Yitzhara. So it doesn't just mean not listening to Yitzhara, it means seeking your Yitzhara on your Yitzhara. What does that mean? In my Yitzhara, Omerloi, Asay Avera Zu, if the Yitzhara tells you to do an Avera, you said, oh yeah? Loi dayoy shenimna min Avera. I'm not just going to not listen to you, Yitzhara, and not do the Avera. If you try to mess with me and you tell me to do an Avera, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go sit and learn a Blat Gemara. Timechepes. Umisgaber Odef Miroida. So it's much better than Roida. I'm not rejecting the Yitzhara. I'm telling you, Yitzhara, you try to make me do an Avera, I'm going to double down on the mitzvah. So the Yitzhara is going to, I'll leave you alone because the more I bug you, the more mitzvahs you're going to do. So that's what it refers to. Sha'ara Elu Batach Nesiyos. So Midas Adin asked, Zok to Gemara, Amrat Midas Hadin Lefnei Kadosh Baruch Hu. Midas Hadin asked Kadosh Baruch Hu, and the Mefarshim explain that these aren't real conversations. It just means that there was a consideration that maybe Midas Hadin should be applied here and it shouldn't be allowed. So Rebbeinu Shalom, Man Nishtanu Elu Me Elu. Why are these people so special? Zok Rashi, Man Nishtanu Elu Me Elu Sheish Ban Midas Halalu Min Hashar. Why are they better than anybody else? Omar Kadosh Baruch Hu b'yayin shogu. So Kadosh Baruch Hu answered, "V'gam eile." Why are they good? Why should we treat them special? They did affairs. Omar lahel. So Kadosh Baruch Hu tells me this in. Yes, they did affairs, but v'gam eile b'yayin shogu. They made mistakes because they drank wine, meaning they didn't have their full das with them. Uv'shecherto paku pililya. Paku Pililya means that we took away their Gehenim. Vein Poik Ela Gehenim. Paku refers to Gehenim. Shenemar Lo Yisiya Zoi Shalach Lupuka. This is when Avigail was brave enough to come to David HaMelech and say, don't kill my husband, even though you have a right to, because it's going to be a blemish on your record. And then it'll be hard for you to protest against Reitzchim because you're now going to kill my husband. So it's going to be your downfall. It's going to be a problem for you. Ve'ein pelila ela dayonim shenemar v'nostan b'plilim. So let's see what the pasuk means. The pasuk becomes ela b'yayin shogu v'shecher to haku pelilya. So Rashi tells us there's no Rashi. So what is the pasuk saying? I had shot on that when I was preparing. Let's see what he says over here. Oh,
he killed them anyway.
But he did kill him anyway?
Yeah.
Listen.
This
Even Dayanim, even Chashuv people fell through Yain, v'nichshlu af b'hayra v'dinei Torah, v'lchein lo yisku la Torah sheberosh tzadikim. So they won't be zoich. So let me see what he says. Amalak Kadosh Baruch Hu l'mid sadin, v'gam eila b'yayin shogu v'sheicher to, polka pililya, v'noshim puka l'gehinim shenemar v'lo yisiyah zoich l'chol puka, v'noshim plila dayanim shenemar l'gabe anogiv yishahara. It says that. V'nosam b'plilim means even the dayanim hachashuvim, if they're nichshul naira, they won't be zoich. So I guess if you're machti other people, then they're not zoich to this atar. Okay. V'nosam b'plilim means even dayanim wouldn't get it. Kama dayanim hachashuvim shebedor to dayayin. So La Torah Shabarisha Tzadikim. So I guess if the Yonim mess up the din, they don't get this crown. Is that what the article says? Gezok Gemara weiter. We're coming into the last stretch of this Heilige B'Sechta. Anshe Ir Nidachas Ein Lam Chelek L'Olam Haba. People of Ir Nidachas don't have a Chelek L'Olam Haba. Now, the question here amongst the Rishonim is, Rashi learns that we're discussing that sugya, which is a continuation of what we've been discussing right now. But there are other Rishonim who learn that this is a statement, it's a standalone statement, and now we're still discussing the halachas of an Ir Nidachas. Shenemar, it says, Yotzu Anoshim B'nei B'liyal Mekirbecha. Bad people came out of amongst you. V'yadichu Yoshve Ira. Right? This is the description of the Torah to what an Ir Nidachas is. Now, Ve'enon Erogan, you don't kill the Anchi Ir Nidachas Ad Sheyehu Madichea Me'oisa Ha'ir. So, if you learn like Rashi, that we're just talking about Ein Lechelek L'Olam Haba, then Ve'enon Erogan, Rashi teaches as referring to not a whole Ir Nidachas, it's referring to you only kill the Madichim if they're from that city. Umayose Hashevet, and from that Shevet. Va'ad Sheyudach Ruba. Again, there has to be Roiv of the city became an Ir Nidachas. The Ad Sheyadichu Anoshim, and it has to be males who were the Madichim. But Hidichu Anoshim. But if the Madichim, the Mesisim, were women or Katanim, or Shehudach Miyuta, or they didn't succeed in making Roiv the cities, Roiv the city of Avodah or the Madichim were from a different city, we treat the entire city like Yechidim, and rather than them suffering the fate of Ir Nidachas, where everyone gets killed b'charev and their possessions get destroyed, we just give each one individually skila as if an individual did avodah zarah. Utrichin beis edim v'asra l'chol echad v'echad. You actually need edim and asra for every single individual person in the city, which means there were hundreds of dinei Torah happening because every single person had to have their own full din Torah. Zeh chomer maybe yechidim mimim berubim. You know what's more chomer about an individual that did avodah zarah versus a rabbim? Sheyechidim b'skila. A yachid who does avodah zarah gets skila. Lefichach mamoinam palait. But their estate is not destroyed; it's saved, and it goes to their descendants. But if it's an Ir Nidachas in a group, b'saif, they have a lesser stringent misa. They only get killed with hereg. Lefichach mamonim avid, but their estates get destroyed. It says in the pasuk, "Hake take es yoshvei erzos." Destroy this city, leficharev, with a sword. Period. Hachameres v'agamelas. In other words, a traveling caravan, either through donkeys or camels. Am I pronouncing right? Chameres and gamelas. So the halacha is hoiveres mimakam l'makom, and they happen to be now in this city. If they're not doing avodah zarah and they're in the city, they count as people in the city, and they could tip the scale from miyut to roiv, from roiv to miyut, or vice versa. Shenemar hachreim oisa ves kol asher ba ves behemta lefi charev. Mikan amru. From here we learned that nichzei tzadikim shebesoicha oivdin. If there's nechasim of a tzaddik in that city, it gets destroyed. Shebechutzala. But if a tzaddik in that city owns nechasim outside of the city, platin, that asset does not get destroyed. But for shal rishoyim. But if it's shal rishoyim, someone who did avodah zarah in the city, all of his assets gets destroyed. Bein shebesoicha, bein shebechutzala. So if they're in the city, so if they're out of the city, the Gemara elaborates on exactly what these mean. Harela Ovin, they will be destroyed. Shenemar ves kol shalol tikpoits. Gather the shalol, even if it's not right here. El toich rechava. What happens if ein lo rechav? What if this city doesn't have like a big square? Oisun lo rechav. You have to make a rechav for it. What if it had a big square, but the town square was right out of the city? You have to rebuild the walls of the city to include that square into the city, because that's where this event has to happen. Kalil Hashem Elokecha. Shlola v'lo shlal shlemayim, but not hektish. Ikadamu hakdeish shaba yiftu. They are redeemed. You don't burn them. Utrumosh. If there's any truma there, yirkavu, you allow to rot. If there's ma'asher sheni or kisvei hektish, yigonzu, they should be buried. Kalil Hashem Elokecha. Amar Reb Shimon. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu. Imatem oisim din b'yar nidachas. If you properly exterminate the yar nidachas, I look at it, I will perceive it as if you are bringing a carbon. This city needs to remain desolate. Don't even forget about not building houses there. Don't even plant things there. No, it means you can't build it to what it was. You could make it into gardens. You're not allowed to take anything. Why? As long as there's any remnant of the Rishayim, there'll be a charoinaf. But of the Rishayim and the Olam, once the Rishayim were exterminated from the world, nistalach charoinaf in the Olam, the charoinaf goes away. Taner Rabbanan, Yotzu hein v'loy shaluchin. Anoshim, okay, Yotzu. It says in the pasuk, Yotzu Anoshim b'nei Belial. So what do you mean Yotzu? Hein v'loy shluchim. Even if it's people from the city who are behind what's going on with this missionary attempt, and they send shluchim, that doesn't count because it has to be they themselves. It says anoshim. Ein anoshim pachos mi beis. There has to be two of them. Dover acher, anoshim is not telling you that has to be two. It means anoshim v'lo anoshim. Anoshim v'lektanim and not minors. B'nei Belial. What does Belial mean? It's Beli oil. Banim sheparku oil shemayim mitzavareim. People who threw away the oil shemayim. Mikir b'chol. The city has to be in the heartland. V'loy min hasaper. If this city is right at the edge on the border, then it does not have Ir Nidachas apply to it. The Gemara will explain, because then marauding armies, if they see a Jewish city get destroyed, they'll come in there and attack. Yosh ve'iram v'lo yosh ve'ir acheres lemar shetzrichen edim v'asror l'cholechad vechot. So lemar, there has to be someone being maces, someone with zara, and someone saying over what happened. There has to be a proper edim and asror for every single person. When they gave out the land, what happens if there was an existing city that straddled the border between two shvatim, between the territory of two different shvatim? So will you allow this one city to have two shvatim in it? So Rabbi Yochanan says you could. Let's bring a raya from our Gemara to Rabbi Yochanan. It says, it says in our Mishnah that the Madichim have to be from the same city and from the same Shevet. Well, if it's from the same city, it has to be from the same Shevet, if you don't give one city to two Shvatim. So it must be you will give one city to two Shvatim, and therefore the Madichim have to be Me'oisha Ir or Me'oisha Shevet. My love, Avagav, the Madichah Me'oisha Ir. Even if the Madichim are from that same city, in Iloi. So Shmami Nachok and Ir Echad L'Bei Shvatim. It must be that when they gave a city, they would give it to two Shvatim, and that's why you need to have an Oisha Ir and Oisha Shevet. So you know how this happened? Not because originally when Yeshua came in, he distributed the land this way. It was originally there was no cities that were split, but this occurred later. The Nafale B'Yerusha, he got it B'Yerusha. For instance, from his father's side, he yarshened one part of the city, and from his mother's side, he yarshened another part of the city. Inami, the Yahuva Nehele b'matan, or it was given to him as a gift. This city. So the Shvatim. So this is something that could have occurred after the land was distributed. Esvei. What about? It says in the pasuk, Orim Tisha Me'esh Shnei Hashvatim Ha'ela. The two Shvatim donated together 9 cities. The two Shvatim are Yehuda and Shimon. they donated 9 of their cities to be the Arei Mikla, to be Ir Halavim. So the question is, if 2 people are giving 9 cities, that means pastors, each one gave 4.5 cities. So my love, Arba Upaga Mehai, Arba Paga Mehai. So once again, how did they have a half a city? Maybe it means Arba Mehai, B'chamish Mehai. Between the 2 of them, they gave 9, but it doesn't mean exactly split 50-50. One Shevet could have given 4, and one could have given 5. If that's the case, it should have said that this Shevet gave 4 and this Shevet gave 5. Don't make it sound like it was each equal. Up to Gemara, Kasha will have to blind with a kasha. I have too many pages to turn till I get there. Okay, let's stop here, and we'll be mamshach tomorrow. Even though we're so close, should we push for the 2 dots? Like we'll push for the 2 dots. Iboilu, hutchu me'elen. What if they went out to derech on their own? There was no instigator. Mao, v'yadichu omer rachmana. There has to be someone instigating it. V'loish hutchu me'elen. Even if it happened by themselves, they still have to deliver Aaron Dachas. Tashma, he dichu nashim maktanim, doesn't work. In fact, the more amai, lahavik hutchu me'elen. If women cannot be the madichim, so if they did it, why should it be any worse than if they're hudach on their own? Elamai, even hudach on their own, you wouldn't get the oynish of Aaron Dachas. No, because hanach basan of shayu griri. If it happened completely on their own, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about someone who's influenced. Hani basanoshim maktanim greedy. It's a different type of Irani Dachas, because it's completely self-prompted that we don't know would be considered, but there it was prompted.
Don't you think it's worse if you did it on your own?
I don't know. It might be worse.
Then it's therefore strong.
I'm sorry.
You do it on your own, then your commitment.
Yeah, but that is the shaila. Maybe it doesn't count because these are all xeris akosovs. So in Svara, yes, it should be considered worse. But maybe if it's worse, they get skila. Like, we really, the only dachas in one way it's worse because they give up their assets, but in the other way it's better because they only get hereg and not skila. What is there?
Why it should be. Shouldn't learn it from Russian. No.
You should not learn it from Russian because it's worse.
Yeah, because it's worse.
Right. Right. So, but the Gemara still blibes. The Gemara still blibes a subject at the end of the day. Okay, shkoyach.